The city of Aurelia gleamed like gold at sunrise, but beneath its glittering skyline lay shadows that few dared to see. Every tower told a story of ambition. Every street whispered secrets of survival. It was a place where the rich lived above the clouds and the poor beneath their dust. Among those clouds sat Victor Hall, a man the city both admired and feared. At 35, he had already built one of the biggest real estate empires in West Africa. His name opened doors, moved markets, and silenced people. Newspapers called him the Golden Architect, not because he built homes, but because he built power. Victor believed in two things only: money and control. His face never softened, his words cut like glass, and his trust was a currency no one could buy. That Monday morning, his penthouse on the 48th floor buzzed with quiet tension. A dinner party had been held there the previous night, a night of wine, whispers, and business deals. When the guests left, the place looked like a battlefield of broken glasses and spilled champagne. Victor hated disorder. For him, chaos was weakness. He pressed a button on his phone. "Send a cleaner," he said coldly to his assistant. "The best one. I want this place spotless before noon." Across the city, in a forgotten neighborhood called Oral, Maya Lawson was already awake. She was 24, graceful but weary, with eyes that carried both gentleness and exhaustion. Her mother was sick, her younger brother out of school, and her father gone since the pandemic. Life had trained her to smile through pain, to keep her dignity even when the world gave her none. The cleaning company called just as she finished her morning tea. "Maya, urgent job," said her supervisor. "Client's name is Victor Hall. He's not easy. Don't talk too much, don't touch anything unnecessary, and don't ever answer back." Maya nodded. Understood. She had heard of Victor Hall before, everyone had. They said he lived above the clouds, literally and otherwise. When she reached the towering glass building, she hesitated before stepping inside. The marble floor reflected her face like a mirror. The guards looked at her ID, as if inspecting a trespasser before allowing her into the private elevator that led to the penthouse. The door opened to a view that stole her breath: white furniture, gold lighting, and glass walls overlooking the entire city. And there, standing by the window with a cup of black coffee, was Victor Hall himself. He didn't turn around immediately. He only spoke, his voice cool and distant. "You're late." Maya glanced at her watch. "It's 9 o'clock, sir." The appointment said. "I didn't ask for an explanation," he interrupted, finally turning toward her. His eyes were sharp, his expression unreadable. "Just clean. And be careful. Everything here costs more than your salary for a year." His words hit like a slap, but Maya swallowed her pride. "Yes, sir," she said quietly and went to work. For hours she scrubbed, polished, and dusted in silence. The smell of disinfectant filled the air, mixing with Victor's expensive cologne. Once or twice she hummed softly. An old hymn her mother used to sing was her way of surviving, silence that felt heavier than noise. Victor watched her occasionally from his office. There was something different about this one, her precision, her quiet grace. But his pride didn't allow him to admit it. To him, she was just another worker passing through his world of glass and marble. By noon, Maya finished cleaning. She packed her tools and stood by the door. "I'm done, sir," she said politely. Victor didn't respond. His eyes were glued to his laptop. So she left quietly, closing the door behind her. Minutes later, Victor stood and walked to his study. He opened the drawer where he had placed a small black box the night before. A custom gold wristwatch worth $25,000, gifted by a foreign investor. His fingers froze. The box was gone. His heart pounded. He tore through his desk, his cabinets, his files, but the box was nowhere to be found. He pressed the intercom button hard. "Erica!" he barked. His assistant rushed in. Sir? The watch. The one in my study. It's missing. Erica blinked. Sir, maybe you misplaced it after the party? Do I look like someone who misplaces things? Victor's voice thundered. That cleaner, what was her name? Maya Lawson, sir. Call the company. Tell them their worker is a thief. Erica hesitated. Sir, maybe we should double-check. I said call them. Within minutes, the cleaning company was on the line, their voices trembling. Mr. Hale, please. Maya has been with us for years. She's never. I don't care, Victor snapped. I want her arrested. If I don't get that watch back by evening, I'll sue your company and make sure you never operate in Aurelia again. The call ended. Victor poured himself another cup of coffee, his anger simmering. These people, he muttered, always pretending to be honest. Poverty is their excuse for greed. By 2 p.m., police sirens wailed down Oral Street. Maya was hanging washed clothes when 2 officers stormed into her small home. Maya Lawson? Yes, officer, she said, confused. You are under arrest for stealing a luxury wristwatch belonging to Mr. Victor Hale. Her hands shook. What? That's not true. I didn't steal anything. Her mother struggled to stand, coughing. Please, my daughter is innocent. She works hard. But before she could finish, the officers handcuffed Maya and dragged her outside. Neighbors gathered, whispering. Some pitied her. Others smirked. Ah, you see? Even the decent ones can't resist rich people's things, one man muttered. Maya's tears blurred her vision. She cried out, Mama, believe me, I didn't do it. Her mother's weak voice followed, I know, my child. God sees everything. The words echoed in Maya's mind as the police van drove away, leaving behind dust, shame, and silence. That night, in her cold cell, she hugged her knees and whispered, I didn't do it. I didn't. But in Victor's penthouse, champagne glasses clinked once again. He sat by the window, the city lights reflecting on his face. Justice, he thought. The thief had been caught. And yet, a quiet unease crept through his chest, a voice he refused to hear, the same whisper that always comes before truth arrives. The morning sun had barely pierced through the dusty streets of Machin, but Annabelle Carter's heart was already pounding. Freedom was sweet, yet bitter. She had tasted it for only a few hours, and the memory of cold bars and mocking whispers still clung to her like chains. Her mother Martha had prepared a small breakfast, but Annabelle had no appetite. She simply stared out at the street, eyes distant, mind racing with thoughts of what had happened and what must come next. Even after Raymond's intervention, the stigma of the arrest lingered. Neighbors whispered as she passed. Children stared. Some even pointed. She had been released, yes, but the shadow of shame followed her like a persistent ghost. Yet inside her, a fire burned, a fire that refused to be snuffed out. She had worked honestly all her life. She would not let lies define her. This is not the end, she whispered to herself, her fists clenched. I will prove my worth. I will not bow to injustice. Not now, not ever. Meanwhile, in the towering mansion at Ecoy, Raymond Douglas paced his office. Tasha Williams' betrayal had left a bitter taste, one that lingered longer than he expected. $20,000 had been stolen from him. Yes, but the real theft had been trust, the betrayal of someone he had loved. He could not understand how Tasha could do this. And yet, he had to act not just for his own dignity, but to ensure that Annabelle's innocence was recognized. Raymond decided to go to Machin himself, not as a billionaire, not as a man of power, but as someone who needed to make amends. He had learned a painful lesson. Appearances could be deceiving, and the poor often suffered silently under the weight of the rich's assumptions. By mid-morning, Annabelle was sweeping outside her small home when she noticed a sleek black SUV approaching. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? The car stopped in front of her house, and out stepped Raymond, his suit slightly ruffled, his expression serious yet calm. "Annabelle," he called softly. She froze, raising her hand instinctively. "Stop, do not come near me." "I do not need your pity," she said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and relief. "I am not here to pity you," Raymond replied. "I am here to make things right. I judged you unfairly. I accused you of a crime you did not commit. For that I'm deeply sorry." Annabelle's eyes narrowed. "Sorry does not put me behind bars, Mr. Douglas. Sorry does not erase the shame the world has thrown on me. I have lost more than 2 nights of my freedom. Do not think a few words can fix that." Raymond nodded, understanding her anger. "You are right. Words are not enough. That is why I have come with action." He paused, pulling out a small envelope from his pocket. "Inside this envelope is your salary for the next 6 months. And more importantly, I want you to work for me. Not through any company, not for anyone else. I want you in my home, directly under my supervision. You will have fair pay, dignity, and security for your family." Annabelle's cheeks flushed, but not with gratitude. It was anger and disbelief. "You think money will buy my forgiveness? You think because you are rich, you can wave it in front of me, and I will kneel? Shame on you." Raymond's gaze softened. "I do not offer this to buy your forgiveness. I offer it because I respect you. I know your worth. I know the strength it took to survive what you have survived. And I want to ensure that strength is rewarded, not punished." She looked at him, skepticism etched in every line of her face. "Why? Why should you care?" "Because it is the right thing to do," he said simply. "Because someone must. Because not everyone deserves to be judged by the wealth of those around them." A small pause followed. Annabelle studied him, measuring his sincerity. Finally she nodded slightly. "I will work for you, but only to prove that I am not weak, not because I owe you anything. And do not mistake my acceptance for gratitude. I still demand respect. Respect will be yours," Raymond promised. "And Annabelle, one day I hope the world sees the truth through your eyes, not through mine." The days that followed were challenging but empowering. Annabelle learned the mansion inside out, its hidden corners, its sparkling surfaces, and the routines that kept it running. Yet she remained herself, humble, hardworking, and fiercely independent. She refused to let wealth intimidate her, and slowly, Raymond began to see her not as a servant, but as a person of integrity and strength. Rumors in the city began to shift as well. People who once whispered about Annabelle's supposed crime now watched as she walked, passed with quiet dignity, her head held high. She had turned her humiliation into power, not through anger or revenge, but through resilience. And in the heart of the mansion, a subtle bond grew between her and Raymond. One not built on money, power, or obligation, but on recognition. Recognition of truth, justice, and the courage to stand tall when the world is wrong. The city of Laros still buzzed, full of wealth and poverty, deceit and ambition. But now, one small corner of it belonged to Annabelle Carter Strong, unbroken and ready to face whatever storms might come next. The morning sun of Laros shone warmly over the city, yet in Annabelle's heart, a storm still lingered. Her first day working directly for Raymond Douglas had arrived. She stood outside the enormous mansion, her heart pounding, not out of fear, but anger mixed with cautious curiosity. She had survived injustice, humiliation, and the sting of false accusations. Today, she would prove her worth, not because Raymond demanded it, but because she owed it to herself. She stepped through the high gates, familiar now, but the grandeur of the mansion never failed to intimidate. Chandeliers sparkled like captured stars, and the polished marble floors gleamed under her careful steps. Every piece of furniture, every vase, and every golden frame reminded her of a world she had only glimpsed before, one that seemed untouchable. Raymond appeared as she entered the living room, impeccably dressed as always, yet his expression was softened by the events of the past day. He nodded at her quietly. "Annabelle," he said, voice calm but commanding, "this house is yours to manage today. Show me that I was right to trust you." Annabelle's lips pressed tightly together. "I don't work for anyone to impress them," she replied evenly. "I work because I respect myself and my family. If you are asking me to manage this house, understand it is not for your pride or your approval." Raymond raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He realized quickly that Annabelle's spirit was as unyielding as it was strong. For hours, she moved through the mansion with precision, cleaning, organizing, and arranging every detail meticulously. The sunlight streaming through the tall windows highlighted her focus and diligence, creating a cinematic dance of shadows on the marble floor. By noon, a subtle change had taken place in the mansion. Raymond observed quietly from his study, noticing not only the flawless work, but the confidence Annabelle exuded. He had often commanded obedience from those around him, yet here was a young woman whose power was her discipline, not her wealth. Then came the moment that tested both of them. A call arrived from the cleaning company, an urgent message that a client in Ecoy had reported missing jewelry. Raymond sighed. "I'll handle it," he murmured, standing and striding toward the door. Annabelle followed, not because he had commanded, but because she sensed the storm. Outside required more than just wealth. It required courage. On the street, Laro's wealth and poverty collided vividly. Vendors shouted, cars honked, and beggars moved among the crowds, their eyes bright with curiosity and caution. Raymond spotted a young girl from the company attempting to flee after a careless mistake. Annabelle stepped forward immediately, intercepting her calmly, correcting the problem without a word of accusation or shame. Raymond watched, astonished. Here was a leader he had not expected, a force tempered by kindness and resilience. Later that evening, after the mansion was perfectly arranged and the day's tasks completed, Raymond called Annabelle to the grand balcony. The sky was ablaze with the hues of sunset, reflecting off the cityscape. "Annabelle," he began, softer this time, "I want to apologize again. Not only for the accusations, but for the way I saw the world. I realized something today. Wealth does not make a man wise, nor does it give him understanding. You have taught me that." Annabelle's eyes met his, fierce and unwavering. "I do not seek your approval," she said, her voice steady. "I seek respect, and the world does not give it freely to people like me. If you have learned something, that is for you, not for me." Raymond nodded slowly, a rare humility settling over him. "You've done more than prove yourself," he said. "You've reminded me of what it means to be human." For the first time, the mansion seemed less like a palace and more like a home. Annabelle realized that this was no longer about poverty or wealth. It was about trust, dignity, and the choices people made when no one else was watching. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, she had reclaimed her life, her spirit, and her voice. As night fell over Laros, the city that never slept continued its endless hum. But inside the mansion, something new had begun. A quiet understanding, a bond formed not from riches or status, but from honesty, courage, and respect. And somewhere deep inside, Raymond felt the stirrings of change, knowing that this young woman, once falsely accused and humiliated, had become his equal, not in wealth, but in strength and character. The stars shone above, like witnesses to the rebirth of dignity and the first steps of a partnership neither wealth nor lies could taint. The morning sun spread gold over the city, and the sound of birds echoed through the quiet gardens of the mansion. Annabelle stood near the balcony, holding a letter in her hand. It was from Raymond, the man who once ruled over empires of wealth but lost his peace in the chase for control. His words were simple this time, free of pride, free of authority. I don't want you to work for me anymore. I want to walk beside you." Those lines changed everything. For years, she had carried the weight of silence, but now it felt like the silence had finally spoken. When Raymond entered the room, he wasn't the man of command anymore. His eyes were softer, his voice slower, and his hands carried no orders, only regret. He looked at Annabelle as if he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "You taught me," he said. "That power means nothing if the heart is empty." She smiled faintly. "Not out of victory, but out of peace." "And you taught me," she replied, "that forgiveness doesn't make us weak. It makes us free." For the first time, both of them stood on equal ground, no boss, no worker, no walls. The mansion that once echoed with footsteps of pride now breathed calmness. Annabelle walked through the same halls where she once worked in fear, now walking with her head high, her spirit unshaken. The maids smiled at her. The staff greeted her with respect, not because of Raymond, but because of her. She had become a symbol of strength, a reminder that dignity cannot be bought or owned. It must be earned. That evening, as the sky turned crimson, Raymond arranged a small dinner in the garden. No luxury, no diamonds, just 2 chairs, candlelight, and the soft rhythm of distant drums from the city. He placed an old locket on the table, the one Annabelle had lost years ago. Inside, there was a photo of her late mother. "I found it," he said quietly. "It belongs with you." Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from the feeling of being seen, truly seen for who she was. Later that night, when everyone had gone, Annabelle stood in the garden alone, looking up at the stars. She whispered softly, "Maybe this is what freedom looks like. Not revenge, not power, but peace." Behind her, Raymond watched silently, not to claim her, not to possess her, but to protect the light she had become. And when she turned back, she smiled, and he knew this was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of something real.